the PowerPoint I was sharing last time. And so why do the fundamentals? The three main reasons that Barteniev has given us are these. They activate the body's connections. They strengthen the expressiveness of the body. They bring awareness to movement principles and coordination patterns. And the fundamentals are basically fundamental exercises that do help us achieve these aims. And they lead to the movement, the developmental movements, which is an area that we can start exploring once we've completed with the fundamentals. So my idea is that we spend today on the first three. And next month, we'll work on the other three fundamentals. And then after that, we'll come into the developmental patterns that Barteniev identified. Does anyone have any questions or comments about that much so far? We're good to go? Yeah. Okay, so I'll just put on a bit of music for us and we'll make a start. So it's really, you'll need some space, as I was saying earlier. So make sure you've got some space where you can move today, some standing room and some room where you can lie down. And we will start standing. Okay. So these are exercises, but let's make them fancy. Can you hear me over the music?
En este camino rumbo a la selva me he encontrado un pajarillo sonajero. En este camino rumbo a la selva.
It's a little bit loud.
Can I speak? Is that better if I do that? Can you hear me now? Yeah? Is that better? Alright, come closer, is that better, Grace? Can you hear me now? Okay, I'll stay here. Alright, so we'll start.
Encontraste la visión a un oso blanco con alas del cóndor
Maybe I won't talk,
y
I'll
mirada
just
de
show.
jaguar.
Okay.
Pajarillo sonajero, encontraste en la visión a un oso blanco con alas del cóndor y mirada de jaguar. Entrelazas marirí, las plumas del águila y del cóndor, donde llueven las gotas del cielo y fecunda la semilla. Entrelazas marirí, las plumas del águila y del cóndor, donde llueven las gotas del cielo y fecunda la semilla. En este camino rumbo a la selva me he encontrado un pajarillo sonajero. En este camino rumbo a la selva me he encontrado un pajarillo sonajero que inspirado en el vuelo del águila encontró en su corazón este canto que brota del alma aquí ahora. Pajarillo sonajero, encontraste en la visión a un oso blanco con alas del cóndor y mirada de jaguar. Pajarillo sonajero, encontraste en la visión a un oso blanco con alas del cóndor y mirada de jaguar. Entrelazas marirí, las plumas del águila y del cóndor, donde llueven las gotas del cielo y fecunda la semilla. Entrelazas marirí,
Take it all the way up and all the way down.
donde llueven las gotas del cielo y fecunda la semilla.
coming back. The second part of the warm-ups is the focus on breath. So you might be standing or sitting for this. And the first of the breath practices is where we focus on the vertical plane, as if the lungs are extending in an up and down direction. And you can make this dancey. So inhaling to stretch and return with the breath. The focus is on the breath. Yeah, okay. And the second focus is out to the sides, a horizontal. So the lungs expanding and retracting. Feeling the rib cage open. Left and right, yeah. Good. And the third one is on the sagittal, like a rocking back and forth, extending up through the sternum and reaching back through the upper spine. Find your way of extending, opening, bulging and returning. This bulging. And play with those three dimensions now, the up and down, left and right, back and forth. And I'll give you a little bit of music for that.
En este camino rumbo a la selva me he encontrado un pajarillo sonajero. En este camino rumbo a la selva me he encontrado un pajarillo sonajero que inspirado en el vuelo del águila encontró en su corazón este canto que brota del alma aquí ahora. Pajarillo sonajero, encontraste en la visión a un oso blanco con alas del cóndor y mirada de jaguar. Pajarillo sonajero.
Yeah, coming back to your center. And yeah, make yourself comfortable. Take a breath. Notice what you're experiencing now. Sensations, breath. Any opening through the upper body. Connection into core. One thing Bartanian said is that breath helps us connect into core. So feel the breath connecting into core. Yeah, and take a rest, take a moment. Okay. And moving into the Bhartaniya fundamentals, there is one, the first one that we'll do is actually part of her warm-up sequence, but it's incorporated in the fundamentals. And I thought the best way to do this so that you can get a better look on the screen as well is to show you a YouTube that I found of someone walking us through this fundamentals. So what I'll do is I'll show you one at a time and then give you some time to practice that. So I'll play each one two times, one where we just watch, and the second time where we can move with the person on the screen. Is that okay if we try that? Yeah. All right. Okay, so
Bartinia Fundamentals is the movement method created by somatic pioneer Irmgard Bartinieff. This video will show the basic 6 part of the Bartinia Fundamentals. The rock and roll is a preparatory exercise to the Bartinia Fundamentals.
Actually, you need to screen share.
1 minute. Yeah. I was, but I don't know what happened. Something went skew. Let me try again. Okay, I'll try again. I'm going to that mode. Here we go. Can you see that now?
Bartinia Fundamentals is the movement method created by somatic pioneer Irmgard Bartinieff. This video will show the basic 6 part of the Bartinia Fundamentals. The rock and roll is a preparatory exercise to the Bartinia Fundamentals. I'm doing the rock and roll here with my feet on the ground, and in a moment you'll see me do the same thing but with legs long. Bartinieff says the rock and roll is to introduce with a rhythmic foot movement the connection of the pelvic area to the heel or grounding, and the connection of the 2 main muscles regulating flexion and extension actions, which is the iliopsoas in flexion and then the hamstrings in extension. I experience the rock and roll as this sort of sine wave moving through the body, starting from either the heels in a long leg position or the whole sole of the foot in a push when the knees are bent. I'm reading from her book, Body Movement, Coping with the Environment, and she says most of the 6 basic exercises on the floor are simply lifting and lowering, flexing and extending of limbs or segments of limbs or trunk.
Okay, so let's now practice with her. You might want your screen next to you or simply listen as you practice.
This video will show the basic 6 part of the Bartinia Fundamentals. The rock and roll is a preparatory exercise to the Bartinia Fundamentals. I'm doing the rock and roll here with my feet on the ground, and in a moment you'll see me do the same thing but with legs long. Bartinieff says the rock and roll is to introduce with a rhythmic foot movement the connection of the pelvic area to the heel or grounding, and the connection of the 2 main muscles regulating flexion and extension.
It has frozen, but keep going, just the rocking and making sure that you're starting from your feet. It's the feet that rock, not the pelvic or the sacrum. Start from your feet. My screen has frozen, but I'll just take one more go.
discover a rewarding career in natural health at Endeavour College's Future of Wellness Month this April, an online event dedicated to exploring diverse and fulfilling work.
Body movement, coping with the environment, and she says most of the 6 basic.
Okay, so let's go now into the second one. I'll share again. I think I'm back on. So if you'd like to have a look.
Exercises on the floor are simply lifting and lowering, flexing and extending of limbs or segments of limbs or trunk. Concentration is on articulation and internal physiological changes. To get the feel of these functional actions, they're performed with minimum effort and space. So here we have the thigh lift, and there's 2 exercises. And the first one is the pre-lift. And this is all about raising the thigh with maximum efficiency and minimal effort. So you can see the internal rotation at the hip, and then the drawing up of the leg initiated by the knee, the grounding of the foot on the floor, a moment of rest and then sensation, and then sliding the leg back out and letting it find its resting place. She mentions initiating this pre-lift with the exhale and intending the heel toward the issue. So as both legs came up, we'll be moving into thigh lift. And thigh lift is about...
Okay, let's have a look at, let's do that first. So I'll just go back to where she started with that.
Moment of rest and then sensation. And then sliding the leg back out and letting it find its resting place. She mentions initiating this pre-lift with the exhale and intending the heel toward the issue. So as both legs came up, we'll be moving into thigh lift. And thigh lift.
Take a moment to practice that. So the rolling of the hip inward and then lifting the from the hip up. Yes. Okay, good. And when you're ready, come back and we'll have a look at the next stage of the thigh lifts.
Really finding the deep folding of the hip socket. And that is using iliopsoas as opposed to the more superficial hip flexors like rectus femoris and TFL. I also find thigh lift a great way to explore the mobility stability continuum. So the leg that's being lifted, really working with full mobility in the hip. And then the down leg, slightly pushing the leg into the floor and activating push, helping to stabilize both the thigh, the pelvis, and the spine. And then bringing in the intrinsic relationship between the diaphragm and the psoas. She mentioned.
I've frozen again, but please have a go, and I'll see if I can get it back. Just get us back on screen. Yeah.
Have you ever thought about doing a residential property development project but had concerns around how to subdivide your property?
looking in the intrinsic relationship between the diaphragm and the psoas. She mentions initiating the thigh lift with exhale and then lowering the leg back down to the ground with the inhale cycle. Next, we have
Okay, so now we come into the pelvic shifts, the forward shifts that she's introduced us to. So let's have a look at this. I'll play it as one block and then repeat it if my video will allow me.
pelvic forward shift, which many of us would know as bridge. And she really talks about the pelvic forward shift as a way to mobilize the weight by means of pelvic shift and use of the pelvic floor, and to prepare for forward and backward weight transference and level change. She mentions initiating the lifting of the hips with the exhale, and when bringing the center of the weight up, also taking it forward towards the feet, so that you're really using your standing feet in this pelvic forward shift. When returning to the floor, sensing again that deepening of the hip socket and continuing to feel the connection between the feet and the pelvis. Exercise number 3 in the basic 6 is the pelvic lateral shift. And this is about lifting the pelvis and moving it laterally without any twist or rotation. She talks about lifting the pelvis, initiating support from the coccyx, and then shifting the pelvis on a kind of a straight line. I always think about this as a conveyor belt, back and forth. So here I'm keeping the pelvis up and moving it, and now you'll see lowering it down to the ground on one kind of extreme end of the right or the left, moving all the way through center and lowering it on the other side. The challenge in this exercise is keeping both sides of the pelvis, the left and the right, kind of at an equal height throughout the entire exploration.
Okay, so I'll play that again. So make yourself comfortable in your position where you can practice along with her. And we start from 3.
Which many of us would know as bridge. And she really talks about the pelvic forward shift as a way to mobilize the weight by means of pelvic shift and use of the pelvic floor, and to prepare for forward and backward weight transference and level change. She mentions initiating the lifting of the hips with the exhale, and when bringing the center of the weight up, also taking it forward towards the feet, so that you're really using your standing feet in this pelvic forward shift. When returning to the floor, sensing again that deepening of the hip socket and continuing to feel the connection between the feet and the pelvis. Exercise number 3 in the basic 6 is the pelvic lateral shift. And this is about lifting the pelvis and moving it laterally without any twist or rotation. She talks about lifting the pelvis, initiating support from the coccyx, and then shifting the pelvis on a kind of a straight line. I always think about this as a conveyor belt, back and forth. So here I'm keeping the pelvis up and moving it, and now you'll see lowering it down to the ground on one kind of extreme end of the right or the left, moving all the way through center and lowering it on the other side. The challenge in this exercise is keeping both sides of the pelvis, the left and the right, kind of at an equal height throughout the entire exploration, and getting a sense of the changing kind of articular rotations and support in both the right and the left thigh. Now we're moving into body half. She mentions this is to become aware of the vertical.
Okay, I think we'll stop there for now. So let's come back. So I had a few little challenges with the technology, and I apologize for that, but let's come back. And so just to recap, we started with the rock and roll, then the thigh lifts, and then the pelvic forward shift with the lateral shift. So take your mind back to what you experienced in your body through those practices. And if you want to make any note or draw something about that, please do that now for a minute or so. Keeping in mind that these warm-ups are a stepping stone towards the developmental pattern work that we will launch into once we've completed with the fundamentals. They are the technical techniques of bringing awareness into how the body moves and connects.
Angela, can I share something?
Please do, yeah.
I think a little bit of what was missing in her guidance was the heel to the sits bone connection. She was not explicitly, she would say the feet, but she wouldn't say heel bone to sits bone. And that's so vital. And she also called it the hip socket. And Bartenieff was very clear. She called it the thigh socket.
Right. Okay. Thank you.
So
yeah.
I just wanted to add that because when you do the rock and roll, it really is, especially when you slide the foot up, when you do that fold, it's really finding how does the heel and the sit bone connect, and then that takes you into the thigh lift.
Thank you for that, Connor. I was kind of thinking about this video compared to another one, which wasn't so clear in picture, but she gave more specific instruction, and I thought the visual might be useful. But thanks for that. And another point with the rocking, I found if I just have the one knee bent and the other stretched, then I could more easily find that rocking motion through the heel, connecting into the tailbone. It just became an easier process. Thanks, Connor. Anything?
Sure.
Any other comments?
Can you just go over the breathing again?
The breathing. So with the lifts, she was exhaling to lift.
Okay.
Which is kind of the opposite of what we would do if we're trained in yoga. There's an exhale to lift and then inhale as you're lowering.
So exhale as you lift and inhale as you lower. Okay.
Yeah.
Can I say something with that?
Dominique, yeah.
As a dancer, it very much makes sense because when you're lifting the thigh, you're actually going down in your thigh socket. So that's where the exhalation, for me, that's
right.
where I feel it makes sense.
Yeah, I'm sensing that as you're talking, like the exhalation drops us in deeper to the body. Yeah, thank you. Okay. Thanks, everybody. They're kind of dry as exercises, and it's a lot more juicy if you come into them with quality, you know, with a sense of the feeling that you're having as you're moving. But in terms of introducing us to the fundamentals, I thought this might be a way to go about it. So thank you. And next month we'll look into the rest of the fundamentals before we launch into the developmental patterns, which is where a lot of the connectivity through the body really kicks in. So over to Maeve, and Maeve's going to lead us through another of the Laban efforts today.
Thanks, Angela. So the effort we're going to look at today, that I'm going to look at, is strong and light. So let's just move straight into movement with it. So either sitting or standing, I just want you to tune into your energy level today. So whether you're feeling really energetic or not, whether you're a bit more lethargic or, yeah. So just tuning into where you are, where is your energy today? And you can just start to move a little bit to, as you start to feel into that, just what is your energy today? Where is it? Where are you feeling it in your body? The most energy or the least energy? Just sensing into that and just starting to move a little bit with that. Just your energy level. And just noticing the quality of your movement as you're feeling into your energy level, whether there's any strength or lightness, or are you fast, slow? Just noticing. Yeah, just taking a little bit of time to feel into that and to begin to move with that energy signature you have today. Might be a lot of movement or just a little bit of movement. And then wherever you are on that continuum of energy, just begin to introduce a little bit of strength into your movement. And what does that mean to you? Adding a little bit of strength into the movements you are doing. What does that mean to you, adding strength? Quality of strong. And how does it change your movement? Or not? And perhaps you've got an image to go with that, or a feeling or a thought. So just let that feed into your movement as you explore, adding strength to your movement. And then gradually begin to let that go and just returning to just a general movement, how you feel like moving, or recovery movement, neutral movement. Just noticing where your energy is now as well. How you're feeling. And then gradually just begin to bring a lightness into your movement. And what does lightness mean to you? Does it mean feeling really floaty and light, or is it a fluttery movement like bird's wings, like a hummingbird? Exploring lightness. And how does that change your movement? Just noticing. And how does that change how you feel or your thoughts, or you have another image that you can just feed back into the movement? And then from that lightness, gradually begin to bring more strength in the movement. So it's like you're moving to the other end of the continuum, back to the strong. Might not be all the way. How far do you move along that continuum into strength? And then you can play with it back the other way, back to lightness. So playing between the two polarities, between the strength, the strong, and the light. Maybe you prefer to be more over one into the light rather than the strong, or vice versa. So just noticing your movement. And then when you're ready, just gradually bringing that exploration to a close. Taking your time, no rush. Transitions are important. Gradually, in your own time, coming to a close. And then just when you get to that still position, feel the movement resonating within your cells. Notice your breath, notice how you're feeling. And notice your energy. Has your energy changed? Is it still the same? And which did you prefer, the light or the strong, or did you have a combination? And then when you're ready, just a minute or two, just to record something about that experience. And then we'll come back. And if there's anything anybody would like to share about what your experience of strong and light was in that little experiential.
Yeah, sure.
Sure, Dominique.
That was interesting because I really found the strength in my legs and the lightness in my upper body. And then like I realized, oh, I need that strength for the lightness in the upper body, which is kind of my usual pattern. So I tried to have the lightness in my whole body and the strength in my whole body, and then even to be light in my lower body and my legs and stronger in the upper body. So it was a really great experimenting, and yeah, that was really good.
Right. It sounds like you discovered something new.
Yeah.
Use of strength and lightness. Yeah.
Yeah.
Thanks. Yeah.
Thank you. Thank you, mate.
Can I share?
Sure. Is that?
Yeah. So at first, when I noticed my energy levels, it's very low. Because I am having problems with my lower back and my pelvic region there. So I was seated, but when you said lightness, so it became like a very small movement. But when you added strength, it became a bit bigger, and then it led me to stand up. And then when you went back to light, it was still big but very floaty. And then when we went back to strength, I kept that, but it became a bit faster. And then I started playing bigger and smaller and faster and heavy and floaty. So at the end of it, I felt, because even though my energy level was still low, I felt it flowing. Yeah. So at least it's not, so I realized that when I started, it was quite stagnant in that region, that lower back. So at least it's now, whoa, yeah, moving.
Yeah, so it sounds like you found a way to flow with that low energy you had through the strength and the lightness. Yeah, lovely. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, well, I might hand back to Angela. I think we had one more, did we, or no?
We can go into the next effort. What haven't we covered, Maeve? Let's have a look. Because we've done sudden and sustained, and maybe we haven't done direct and indirect. Shall we do that today?
Well, we could, or is there any, did anybody else have anything they wanted to share or to say about perhaps the whole day? Just, we've only got about 10 minutes. So what would you like to do? What's another effort, or just more discussion about today?
Let's do another effort.
Okay, Angela, over to you.
Over to me. Okay. All right. So again, we're going to need some space. And so this is the fourth effort that Laban introduced us to, and it's direct and indirect. So let's start by finding our place in the room we're in, feeling our feet on the floor, and having a sense that we have a destination. So have a sense of where your destination is, whether it's out in front of you or off to the side. Where is your destination? Somewhere that you want to go, a place, it could be a physical place, it could be something you want to achieve, like a goal. It doesn't have to be like a location as such, it could be a goal. But have a sense of where you're going to place it in the room you're in front of you or off to the sides. Where is it? And what we're going to play with now is moving towards that destination in a very direct way, and then we're going to experiment moving towards that destination in an indirect way. So let's start with direct. You know where you're going, and find your way there in a direct way, whatever that means to you. So find yourself traveling there in a direct way. And notice what your body language is like as you do that, the feeling in your body, your drive. How are you feeling as you're moving towards that in a direct way? What about your eyes? Where are your eyes looking as you're moving? And just for our purposes, I'm a little bit short on space, so I'm moving towards my direction, but it's a back and forth movement. So moving towards your direction in a direct way. Notice how you feel as you approach it. Okay, and then come back to the starting point. And we have the same destination, only this time we're going to explore moving there in an indirect way, however that is for you. So it could be that you meander towards your destination. Notice your body language as you move towards your destination, how much time it takes you, where your gaze might fall as you move in an indirect way towards your destination. Your body language, any feelings. Your drive, how much drive there might be. And then make your way back to your starting point. And in this next round, play with moving directly and indirectly and see where your preference is, where your energy is at the moment. Is it more into the direct or more into the indirect? Notice what you notice. Okay, and bringing it back. Yeah. Gradually bringing it back. Take your time. Notice what you're shifting out of as you come back. And take a moment to record what you noticed, what you experienced, what came up for you. And if you'd like to share something of your experience, please do, what you noticed.
Is someone sharing? Oh,
Judith?
Yeah, I'm trying.
Oh.
We can hear you,
I'm
Judith.
not sure if you can hear me. Okay.
Yeah.
I really noticed that when I was doing that I had a sense that I like to move indirectly, that was more adequate. Was just urgent. But I found that moving indirectly was actually more tiring than moving directly.
Oh,
And
okay.
I think as the body often does, it tends to have areas that energetic quality, whereas other areas of the body have another energetic quality. So something happened in bodily to compensate with the indirectness. So whilst my legs and torso had tended to be more direct, they were holding the indirect sort of upper body. It was actually it was hard work. So it's interesting to think that sometimes the way we think we want to move isn't necessarily going to give us the ease that we're looking for.
Okay. So,
Yeah. So,
So
yeah.
so the energy wasn't coming from where you thought it would come.
No.
Yeah.
No.
And not all the whole, not the whole body is engaged in that. It could be just particular parts of the body engaged in that movement, not the whole body. Yeah. Okay.
If there was already some coherence in my body, which obviously there isn't.
Okay.
Dissonance.
Yeah. So
Yeah.
if it's
So yes.
that
So
there
that
is,
it's moving that actually helps find with what that is.
right. Okay. Just to find where there is no coherence, and that is information enough sometimes.
Yeah.
Yeah. Thank you. Yeah. And then congruence might come in some other way. Yeah.
Yes.
I found it really interesting. I found the directness was very sharp, clear. You know, you had to really focus. And then when you went indirectly, you were able to sort of meander and flow with where you're going. And I found it, it actually allowed you a little bit more play
Okay.
in that. And then when I put all of them together, that's when I felt that there was that real strong element of play. If you allowed it to take you with whichever way you wanted to go, that there was this element of play. So I found that when I was doing that, a lot of the other things that we were talking about with the other elements, like the sagittal movement, I think the sagittal forward and the back were coming in play, the side to side, the corner, I think that's the sagittal, the corners were coming into play. So you had a much more fuller range of angles and spatial than if just doing the direct.
Okay.
So yeah, so I found that really interesting.
Okay, thank you for that. So, so that's great, Therese, in discovering that even the direct movement, although you might normally think of it as a more serious movement, a purposeful movement, but that can also be playful as well. Yep. When you kind of bring it in with the indirect, yeah. And also that some of those technical things that we learn in the Bartenia fundamentals of the dimensions and the ways that the breath can move and so forth, helps us to increase our range of movement, and it gives us a much wider scope and for expression through movement. Yeah. Yeah. So it might be a bit dry as we're learning it, but it offers a lot. Yeah, thank you. Any other comments? We've just got one more minute.
Can I share? So it felt very, I mean, okay, wait, why my words? Okay, it became quite psychologically, I mean, I was more aware of that part. So when I went direct, I felt more connection towards that thing, and for some reason, my body was more open to it. So I ended up, because it was a corner of the wall, so I ended up like hugging it. But when I went indirect, the connection was not so strong, and there was a bit of reluctance. So when I arrived there, it wasn't my entire body that was there, but like just certain parts, and it took me a while to get to where I was when I was directly going there. So in my head, I feel like my body was less open to that corner of the wall. Yeah. And also when I put them together, I felt it was weird because I was more comfortable with direct, but for some reason the indirect took over and my focus just went to another place in the room, and I just went there for some reason. Yeah.
You can easily lose focus and meander off somewhere else when you're in indirect. And I like that you put this, you mentioned the psychology of it, because what that makes me think of is if my destination is something that really appeals to me, that's going to affect how I move towards that thing. But if it's something I don't want to look at, like the housework or the corner of the room, like, no, why would I go there? And I might just meander here and there. My eyes will go everywhere. And so what we're moving towards also has could affect how we move towards that thing. Yeah. Did you find, like, anyone else have something to share about that?
Yeah, I had the opposite, of Li Qing's. So I'm in a procrastinating mode. I know my state, and then when we were doing that, I was like, I don't want to get there, but I had to meander and do something else, to get to that place. So yeah, the opposite is true too.
Totally. Or when you've got an assignment to do and suddenly you think, I've got to do the housework. Yeah. Yeah, so we can explore and discover all of that in our movements, like it's all in the body. Yeah. Thank you, everybody. Maeve, I'll hand over to you.
And thanks, Angela. Yeah, it felt like a really rich experience today, all the different things that we have done. We've packed a lot in, I think, too. A lot to think about, I think. And yeah. So just before we close, we don't have anyone as yet to lead an experiential for the first Thursday conversation in May. Yeah, we're already up to May, aren't we? Time's flying. So if anyone would like to volunteer, just let Karen know, or if someone wants to put their hand up today, that'd be great. Otherwise, just let Karen know.
Thanks. And thanks, Connor, for last month's work on the body metaphors. That was so beautiful. Thank you so much. So if anyone has got some inspiration to share something with us, movement-based, we'd really, really appreciate it. Thanks, everybody.
Okay.
Shall we just do one little gesture as we're leaving? Whatever you feel to do. Find your way to sign off. Woohoo! That's great. Bye-bye, everybody.